Well, good morning, everyone. It is Championship Sunday, as usual. It is New Year's Eve. I'm sitting here with Jed over in Chicago, Jimmy over in Phoenix. Welcome, everyone.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Hey, before we start, I want to talk a little bit about the new COVID policies. The NFL and the NFL Union adopted new CDC guidelines that reduces the quarantine time to 5 days from 10 days for all players, including those who are unvaccinated. Jed, I'll start with you. Ironic they're doing this during playoff times because they don't want to lose their superstars during these playoff times.
Yeah, well, I think they're probably also watching look at what's happening to the NBA. I mean, the NBA, you have meaningful games being played by basically second and third string players. And so they're in a situation where I think they're right at the cusp of people being upset because it's like, man, is this a legitimate season? Do you actually need to pause the season? So I think the NFL is being preemptive and is like, we don't want anything like that to happen. Or even look at Northwestern, look at all the bowl games that got canceled. That's the NFL's nightmare, right? If they have to cancel a playoff game.
I've been so frustrated with NBA fantasy. I don't know about you guys, because you can't drop these players because it's not like they're really on injured reserve, right? But they're not playing and they're out for 10 days. So you have all these like bench players who are scoring 20 to 30 points and you're just sitting there watching your guys be on IR.
Oh, yeah. Look at Doncic. For me, a lot of times Doncic has been out for a while. He had the ankle injury, and then from that point, he was supposed to come back. Suddenly gets COVID, and now he's out for another. So I think in the last 3 weeks, I haven't seen Doncic on my lineup at all.
Yeah, it's definitely. I mean, the whole entire Atlanta Hawks. I remember they were out. That hurt me with Trae Young being out. But like you said, the other thing is you can pick up these guys. I got that guy from Detroit, Sadiq Bey. I don't know if you guys saw him. He went off for like 30 plus points. It's crazy.
He was the one. Wasn't Sadiq Bey the guy who went after LeBron James? Or no, it wasn't
him. No, that was Isaiah.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Jim Carson, the Colts plays Carson Wentz on the reserve COVID list. He is unvaccinated, but does have a shot to play in Week 17 against the Raiders due to this new COVID policy. Now, at the same time, if he doesn't play, Sam Ehlinger is the Colts' current backup. And the Colts have reached out to Phillip Rivers, wanting to know if he will come back for. It's ironic. We've heard this with Drew Brees and now Phillip Rivers again.
You know, all they're going to do is whether it's Phillip Rivers or Ehlinger, they're just going to give it to Jonathan Taylor and just tell him to run it. I mean, that's really. But here's the other thing too. It's the last game of the season. I think the Colts have locked up They might have locked up a playoff already. I mean, you don't really want to play too much of your star players right now because you don't want them to get hurt going into the playoffs.
Yeah, I think what that hurts is Michael Pittman. Like if you were thinking about playing Pittman, this is where you got to consider, well, I don't know, with Ellington in there, I don't know how he's going to do.
By the way, I really do like this feature. This feature is great because then you could see everything right now, right?
Yeah.
This new feature that we're doing on our platform that we're recording on allows you to seamlessly share screens and everything like that, which wasn't existing when we first started as well, too. And if we look at all of the different playoff pictures right now, Kansas City, Tennessee, Cincinnati, Buffalo, Indianapolis, New England, Miami actually has done really, really well. Now, at the same time, if suddenly Miami does lose, you have Baltimore, Chargers, and the Raiders all sitting there. I actually don't think Pittsburgh Steelers will make it. I don't think Cleveland Browns will make it. I don't think Denver Broncos, but Ravens, Chargers, Raiders actually have a decent chance of making the playoffs this year.
Well, I don't know. Like I was just reading for the Ravens. Lamar Jackson still hasn't practiced, so it's still iffy whether or not he's going to play.
He did practice, but then he was hobbled, like he had such a bad, and he couldn't practice the second day, so it's not looking good for him.
Yeah. And then the Chargers, I would think out of all that group, the Chargers has the best chance to make it into the playoffs, but you never know. The Chargers are always the Chargers. They always end up losing it at the last minute, and they can't make the playoffs.
Yeah, now, I would think you would not want to face either the Chargers or the Ravens. If they sneak in there, those are both pretty dangerous teams. Mm-hmm. I think they could make a little noise.
Well, especially if I was the Chiefs, I would not want the Chargers to come in there because they have such a hard time going against the Chargers. And if the Chargers come in in the number 8 spot, the Chiefs are better be worried.
Well, last week, both Eckler as well as Williams were out because of COVID protocols. They're now all back for this week's game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Wow, Miami's really jumped up there, but they also they're on a 7-game winning streak. So they're at what? They were at 1-7. Now they're 8-7. That's great.
It's amazing.
Really, yeah.
Jim, if you were to look at this list, who's still the favorite? Is it Kansas City still the favorite, or do you like the hot streak that Cincinnati is on, or do you like the Buffalo Bills with Josh Allen or the Colts with Jonathan Taylor?
Well, I think Kansas City is actually, I mean, if you really think about Kansas City, right, they've always been the deep throwing team with both Kelsey as well as also with Tyreek Hill. The one thing in the last few games that they've figured out is how to do some of those short passes, right? Last week, Pringle had a great game. They didn't, and they're using the running backs a little bit more. So I would say right now, you still have Kansas City going as the favorites into the championships.
Hey, have you guys heard of on Derrick Henry? Because I remember the last I heard was he was trying to make it back for the playoffs. Is there still a chance? Because if he comes back, then that changes. Otherwise, I would say Tennessee is not going to make any noise. But if Derrick Henry comes back, that makes that whole equation different.
Oh, yesterday, I'm just reading the Sports Illustrated. Headlines are Titans appear to tease return of running back Derrick Henry.
Yeah, that's what they were saying. He can make it for like the playoffs. And if he made it for the playoffs, man, then that team becomes a whole different story.
Can you imagine arrested Derrick Henry in the playoffs?
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Like they could be really gangbusters. Otherwise, I actually don't like the Chiefs this year, even though they're number one. I just think there's too much variability in their offense. I think the defense has stepped up, but the offense has just not been the same. The team I like on this list, to be very honest, is the Patriots. I think the Patriots can make a run here. We know the Patriots. I expect them to crush Jacksonville this weekend, but I think the Patriots could come out of this group.
Hey, but don't be surprised if the Bengals actually make a run. Joe Mixon has been very, very hot. You look at Chase, you look at Boyd and all those, and T. Higgins, they've been doing really well. And so with Burrows continuing to lead the way, don't be surprised by Cincinnati Bengals.
Well, this weekend's game is huge. So the Bengals are playing the Chiefs. So I agree with you, but I want to see the Bengals. They haven't shown up in the biggest games. They have in their division. So they've beaten, Baltimore's, but in the Pittsburghs, but they need to show it outside the division. So if they come and play well this week, then I agree with you. They could be ready.
I agree with you with the 3, 4, 5s because they're young teams, young players. Young players usually don't do too well in the playoffs, except maybe the Bill Belichick teams, right? Because Belichick is there. He's able to guide the Mac Jones of the world. But that's why, for me, I still lean towards the Kansas City Chiefs because the young players in Cincinnati, Buffalo, and Indianapolis Colts, I'm hesitant about them as we're going into playoffs.
Jed, speaking in terms of matchups as well, too, if you were the Tennessee Titans, you're playing the Miami Dolphins this week. Would you want to beat the Miami Dolphins handily so that they actually are out of the playoffs? Or would you like to take it easy and allow the Ravens and Chargers to slip into the playoffs?
Oh, I don't think you care. I don't think you're worried about who you're matched up against. Personally, I think you never go into these trying to figure out trying to play for who you're going to play next. I think you just play for yourself. Like, I think if I'm Tennessee, I need to make sure my offense is clicking. I protect anyone who I'm worried about as far as injury, but mainly it's about my own team, and I'm not worried about who I'm playing.
If you look at some of the matchups over at the AFC, there's a lot of Miami's playing the Tennessee Titans. Yep. Then you have the Las Vegas Raiders playing against the Colts, which, especially if Carson Wentz doesn't play, there's a good chance. Well, there's always Jonathan Taylor as well, too. Yep. Then you also the Kansas City Chiefs playing the Bengals, as Jed said, and the Broncos playing against the Chargers this week.
Yeah, a lot of good games, but I definitely think that the Bengals versus Chiefs, that's it. The Bengals, Chiefs, and the Cardinals and the Cowboys, I think those are the two big games this week.
How many of you guys think that the Pittsburgh Steelers is just not going to do well? I mean, they've just been terrible.
No, they're done. And Roethlisberger's gone. I mean, this is his last season. So, I think they're done.
Well, don't you think, though, from a fantasy perspective, and I don't know who out there has Pittsburgh Steelers players, don't you think that because this is most likely his last game for the Steelers, that they're actually going to put on a pretty good show and win this game?
Yeah, that's an interesting thought. I definitely believe that players play well in certain situations and play for certain players. So I could see Pittsburgh. That's not a bad thought at all. Maybe trying to, last hurrah for Roethlisberger going out. But that's a tough team playing the Browns, and the Browns have a lot to play for too. So it might not be an easy game.
Yes. Hey, look, there's a huge rivalry. Roethlisberger has not been good. Najee Harris has not been good. It's just not going to be very good.
Yeah, Najee Harris actually the last few weeks has not done well. He's actually really, single-digit fantasy points. I still have him on my playoffs for our dynasty league because I can't, because he has such a high ceiling and you don't want to give up on him. But I've been so frustrated by Najee Harris.
Yeah, I was looking at your lineup and wondering. I was wondering if you were thinking about playing. You've got who is it? You've got another running back on the bench.
Yeah,
That's
Michael
pretty
Carter.
good. Yeah, Michael Carter.
There.
Yeah, Michael Carter. That's an interesting, decision you have to make because they're playing the Bucks. So you expect the Bucks to win big. They're 13.5-point favorites, but I could see some points there for the Jets. I don't expect, in garbage time, I think the Jets could pick up some points.
Yeah. The other thing I thought about is, I don't know what you guys think is, the backup Adare, the backup running back to Jacksonville, who's going to be the starter this week. He's on the waiver wire, right? So do I pick him up and then put somebody like a Najee Harris on the bench? But then I was like, consistency has helped me win this season. So I'm not going to try gambling right now and try to overthink this.
Yeah, I agree with that, especially a talent like Najee Harris. And like we just said, he has a lot to play for. It's also a Monday night game. And I always feel like Monday night games, the stars come out to play. So let's just see what happens.
Yeah, except actually with the Dynasty League, I don't know if you guys have looked at it. Sometimes you can find some really good players sitting there that you might want to stash away for a later date and think about it towards the end.
Well, for my dynasty league, I would do it, except right now moves, so I can't do anything. Yeah. Hey, all I'm hoping with the Pittsburgh game, Freiermuth, that's all I need him to do, make one touchdown in order for my championship game.
There's a good chance for that. I could see that, especially against the Browns. Yeah, I could see that.
Oh, hey Tom, I'm just looking at it. You're slated to beat Vince.
Yeah, in our championship game. Yes.
Oh, wow. I don't know. The only person that do you want to see if James Robinson was playing, I would not have played Antonio Gibson.
Yeah, but Robinson's not playing.
Yeah. Because Tommy has Antonio Gibson playing, but Robinson is now on the bench.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
And the big thing, remember, this weekend isn't. I think Swift is coming back this week, so that's an important one.
Here's a question, right? Oh, this is actually a really good question. So my brother has in his championship Gibson playing. He's slated to get 13 points, right? Last week he had 12. Last week he had 15. But the other person who's on the bench right now is a Darrell Williams, who the last time he started also scored double digits. And I think with Edward Helaire out, he's going to be the starter. Would you play a Darrell Williams instead of somebody like Gibson?
Well, the problem is Gibson right now not only has that injury to a shin, and also ankle and back as well too. So already his turf toe injury as well too. So he's walking wounded. I also have McLaren sitting on my bench, and so I may really think about Darrell Williams this week too.
I actually like that because I expect the Chiefs-Bengals games to be high scoring, which means that Williams could even just get a cheap touchdown, like a goal line touchdown or something. So especially if you think Gibson has all those injuries, they're playing Philadelphia, so it's going to be a tough battle down there. But I expect the Chiefs and the Bengals to be super high scoring, so it might not be a bad move.
All right.
Also lucked out.
Actually, before you do it, let me ask you guys a question, Jim. If you had to pick Darrell Williams, Antonio Gibson, or Boston Scott?
I think from that group, I would still go with Darrell Williams.
Yeah, I agree. I agree because I'm like I said, I think it's going to be a shootout, so that's the guy I'd go with.
Yeah.
Hey, look at the NFC picture as well too for some of you guys. Jim, is the Green Bay Packers and the Rams your heavy favorites coming out there, especially with Tampa Bay losing Godwin?
I don't know. Dallas did really good last week. I think you would have to consider him. I still don't entirely trust the Rams. I still think Packers are number one, and I still think that Cowboys are number two. I would say those are my two top favorites. I don't trust the Cardinals. I don't trust the Rams. Not the Eagles. 49ers might make some noise in the playoffs as well too.
Yeah, a lot of times people are down a little bit on the Arizona Cardinals. Where are you standing on the Arizona Cardinals?
Yeah, well, this is a big game. They're playing the Cowboys, so I'd like to see a little bit of life. The Cardinals have not played well the past 3 weeks. Kyler Murray, in particular, has not been the same since coming back from injury. The Cardinals are 6.5 point underdogs to the Cowboys, so everyone's basically rooting on the Cowboys. But I feel like the Cowboys have been inconsistent this year as well, and so, but I think for the Cardinals, if they want to make a run, we need to see a good showing. But don't sleep on them. We all know they have the offensive power. Their defense has played a lot better this year. I also think the Bucks, even though they lost Godwin, I think the return of Antonio Brown is going to really help them. I think the Bucks are still the defending champs, and I think you got to look out for them.
Yeah. Hey, who would have thought in the hunt still is the Atlanta Falcons and the New Orleans Saints with all of their injuries? Taysom Hill's coming back for the Saints. Atlanta, their old team, but Cordero Patterson and Kyle Pitts has kept them in the game.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of sad. They're all losing records and they're still in the hunt. It's kind of a sad statement. But I expect the Vikings really to come out. We've talked about this, Justin Jefferson and Dalvin Cook came back. So I expect the Vikings to come out of that group, but we'll see.
Yeah, well, the only thing is the Vikings are playing the Packers in a Sunday night game, and so let's see what happens.
Yeah, don't be surprised if the Vikings win that game, though. I still think the Packers are. I don't know. I'm not a buyer in the Packers yet, but we'll see.
From a fantasy perspective, I think Minnesota, you want to look at KJ Osborne, who's going to take over for Thielen. For Cardinals, it doesn't look like James Conner is going to play, and it's going to be primarily Chase Edmonds. So I think those are going to be two big players. And if for San Francisco, I think it's going to be the quarterback coming in for Jimmy Garoppolo.
Yeah, Trey Lance coming in is a big one for San Francisco. So if you need a quarterback at this stage, not a bad play.
Yeah. Hey, look at the Carolina Panthers. They're playing the New Orleans Saints. Taysom Hill is going to start. And with that one, Sam Darnold is once again starting week 17 because, look, they were saying that Cam Newton has completely lost it. He's not able to throw anymore. And so now Sam Darnold is back as starting quarterback.
Yeah, one thing I'll mention on the Saints, if you've been playing Alvin Kamara and have been disappointed, he hasn't been so great the past few weeks, expect him to play well this game with Taysom Hill back in. When Hill comes back in, you really usually see a lot of focus on Kamara, and it opens up a little bit of lanes for him. So I expect Kamara to have a big game this week.
Sorry, the cleaners came in to start vacuuming, so I had to move to another room.
No worries.
Yeah. Hey, a couple of other things as well, too. We talked about Clyde Edwards-Helaire suffered a collarbone injury. He is out for Sunday. Darrell Williams is in there. Ramondre Stevenson activated from COVID-19. And so now you thought Damian Harris with 3 touchdowns now is back in the timeshare with Ramondre Stevenson. Darren Waller, who in some sense actually did really well at the beginning of the year, has been a disappointment in the second half of the season, placed on COVID-19. Miles Sanders officially ruled out for week 17.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'll just mention, because I know a lot of people picked up Damian Harris. I still like Harris going into that game against Jacksonville. I think he'll get a bulk of the carries. Ramondre Stevenson, if you have him, I would still sit him and just wait and see, because I don't expect him to suddenly take over the lion's share of the carries.
Let me ask you guys, Harris a keeper in a dynasty league?
No, Ramondre Stevenson. If I was to even look at it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, between those two, I agree with you. But honestly, yeah. I tend to not like the New England Patriots running backs because they rotate them so much.
Well, and there's 3 of them, right? Ramondre, there's Brandon Bolden, and also Harris. So, I mean, even if, you're right, they're always going to rotate amongst those 3.
By the way, speaking of former New England running backs, Jed, Sony Michel, man, he's been really, really good. Cam Akers is slated to return, but man, Sony Michel has carried that team well.
Yeah, he's looked good.
That's what I was looking at in your lineup. So here's the thing. I don't know if you guys have done this week. I went back to week 1 and I looked at who did I draft and who did you end up with in your championship team. So in Tommy's case, he's lucky to have gotten Sony Michel off the waiver wires because he didn't draft him. But a lot of times, like in most of my championship, like in the Walter White League, only 2 players are left from who I drafted. It's really figuring out how to make those moves during the season.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. This year, more than any other, the free agent pickups has been huge because normally your first three picks in the draft, the whole point is your first three picks have to be the rock of your entire team. But this year has really been different. And so it's been a lot more, trading and picking up of players.
Hey, speaking of that, Jed, let me ask you a quick question. If you had to pick between Michael Pittman, if Carson Wentz is out, Russell Gage, or would you do Russell Gage and what's the other one? Terry McLaurin.
Ooh, man. Uh, I think Russell Gage.
Russell Gage.
Yeah, I think Russell Gage sounds like the right pick there. I mean, I expect that, yeah, they're going to be in a shootout. I mean, they're going to be coming back. They're going to be down, but they're going to be having to throw a lot. So, yeah, I would go with Russell Gage.
Well, here's my only hesitation about Russell Gage is last week he scored only 4 fantasy points against a weak Detroit defense, right? And this week he's going up against a strong defense in Buffalo. So I was like, I don't know if you want to play a Russell Gage, whereas McLaurin is going against the Philadelphia Eagles, and you would think that might be a little bit easier game for McLaurin.
Yeah, but that's why my thought is that the Falcons will be behind by so much that they're going to be throwing a lot, and so then that's where Gage might get his opportunities. But you're right; either one is a tough choice. I mean, the thing I don't like about McLaurin is obviously the quarterback play. So that's the problem.
Well, here's the thing, Tom. I mean, I think both Jed and I will agree. If Carson Wentz is not playing, Pittman is most likely not a player you want to play in your championship game.
Yep. Now, at the same time, Terry McLaurin has under 12 fantasy points in 6 of the last 7 games, and the Eagles are allowing the 9th fewest passing yards per game. Just not very good. And so maybe Russell Gage is it as well, too. Hey, speaking next week, we probably have one more week to record. And here's the one thing I would love for your thoughts on next week. I would love for us to look at the fantasy MVP. I want us to look at the best waiver wire pickups, best rookie, most disappointing fantasy player, and best late round pickup as well too. So here's you're seeing it on the screen right now. So MVP, best waiver wire pickup, best rookie, most disappointing fantasy player, and best late round pickup. And so let's talk about these players for next year.
Let's define late round. What's late round? Like past what? Like 8th
past
round?
the 6th round.
Past the 6th round.
Yeah.
Okay.
So 7th, 8th, 9th, whatever it is.
Okay.
Hey, look, I wouldn't be surprised that Cordero Patterson ends up on a lot of waiver wire pickups. Is the best waiver wire pickup.
Yeah, he was definitely a solid one this year.
And to think the Bears had him, all right? And to think the Bears had him last year.
Yeah. By the way, Tyler Boyd's on the waiver wire. Did you guys know that Tyler Boyd has scored 20 fantasy points in the last two games? Those Cincinnati guys, they're actually not pretty. They're pretty
well,
good.
they've been throwing so much that 525-yard game kind of threw everything.
And this week they're playing Kansas City, so they're all going to have to throw even more. I mean, here's my thing: if I was Cincinnati, I want to go into the playoffs making a statement. So I'm going to go hard against the Kansas City defense.
Exactly. That's why all these teams we're trying to see. I'm a big believer that you want to play your guys and have momentum going into the playoffs. If you guys remember the Giants who won as the 6th seed, I remember that last game of the regular season, they could have sat everyone, but instead they played and won that game, and it gave them the momentum going into the playoffs, and then they took that to the championship. So that's kind of what I'm hoping for some of these teams like a Cincinnati.
Yeah, I have high hopes for Cincinnati long term. The Joe Burrow, Chase, Boyd, Higgins, Mixon, that's a very, very good lineup right there. If they could continue to shore up their defense, shore up their offensive line, look, these guys are really good. Cincinnati has been the laughing stock of the league, and I think they just are positioned to do really well.
Jed, you might want to reconsider who you keep for your dynasty quarterback.
No. The thing is so the guys are talking about I have Joe Burrow and Kyler Murray in our keeper league, and normally you would not keep 2 quarterbacks, but I've thought about it. So the fifth keeper spot for me is Cordero Patterson right now, and so it would be keeping him or Joe Burrow.
I mean, you can get let's just say you kept the Joe Burrow and let go of Cordell Patterson. You can get a pretty decent player in the middle of the season once you trade him.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
The thing I didn't like this season though is because I had both guys, I had having to make decisions every once in a while about which one to start, and I would pick wrong. And so I hate that. Like I always don't like that.
Hey, let me ask you a quick question. Dolphins against the Titans. Running back Duke Johnson, 13 plus carries in 2 straight games. Would you even look at him?
Not me.
No, not right now. Yeah. I mean, I think, 2 weeks ago, he was fine, but this past week, he came back to normal. And so I think they're still going to feed him, right? My guess is they're still going to give him 13 to 15 carries, but my guess is he'll maybe get like 70 to 80 yards. But I am surprised by the Dolphins.
Got it. Hey, what other games are you interested in, Jed? I know a lot of times you like to spread it. Are there certain games that you're interested in this week?
So I talked about the 2 big games, obviously the Cardinals and the Cowboys and the Bengals and the Chiefs. But my pick for the week, if we want to do picks, I always like to pick an underdog. The Lions are 7-point underdogs to the Seahawks. We all know the Seahawks problems. They just lost to the Bears. I think their whole, everything's kind of blowing up in Seattle right now. And Detroit is getting, what's his face back for the running back, so DeAndre Swift. And so I expect them to play a little closer. I'm going to pick the Lions over the Seahawks.
Really? Okay. Hey, by the way, they just did put Adrian Peterson on injured
IR.
reserve. So he's out for you. Rashad Penny has been doing really, really well.
Oh yeah, Penny has been great. If you picked up Penny, again, the Seattle running back, kind of not as good as the 49ers running back situation, but the Seattle running back position generally, whoever's there, if they get 20 carries, they always look really good.
Jim, speaking of that, Giants versus the Bears, you're expecting come Monday, Matt Nagy will probably be fired?
I think so. I mean, actually, I'm pretty sure. I think Carolina's going to make a head coaching change, and I think the Bears are going to make a head coaching change. Except this past week, I felt some sympathy for Matt Nagy because of all the stuff that happened to the ESPN reporter, Jeff Dickerson, and Nagy was actually really good. He took some time out of his press conference to talk about him, and he went on the radio to talk about him. So I was like, oh, he's a pretty decent guy. He's just not a good coach.
The Bears are favorites this week. They're 5.5-point favorites over the Giants.
I can see those guys winning too because they don't care about draft picks because they don't have a draft pick this year. So I could see actually them trying to win this game.
But no matter what happens, the Bears are still giving up their draft pick for this year, which is probably going to be a top 10 pick. So no matter what happens, they're losing a top 10 pick here. And the Giants are 4-11. They're pretty bad. Jim, I actually think that there is no way Carolina is going to fire their coach, Matt Rule. He is someone who is highly respected. And a lot of times there was bidding wars against Matt Rule. I bet you a lot of times they're going to have to find a new quarterback. Sam Darnold probably isn't it, but I think he has at least a couple more years under his belt.
Yeah, but the only thing is, did you see the owner came out yesterday and said that he was very disappointed and embarrassed by the Carolina Panthers? And so that's one of the reasons some people are saying, he's a new owner. He wants to make sure that ticket sales are going well. He's got McCaffrey for a few more years. So I don't know. I mean, I think a lot of these owners, they have short leases.
Yeah, but it's not his fault that McCaffrey is injured. I mean, he's so injury prone. Jed, let me see. Ashley, sorry about that. What was the other one? Broncos versus Chargers. I want to be able to talk a little bit about that. Is besides Javonte Williams and Melvin Gordon, are you even looking at any Denver players this week?
No, I think, other than the running back situation, no. And even there, we've talked about it all year. It stinks that it's a timeshare. It's kind of screwed people up. But Gordon has been okay. You've gotten a decent amount of points, but the passing game in Denver is nothing you want to be a part of.
And one thing, Austin Eckler is supposed to play, but if he is not playing, Justin Jackson all day, you are starting him over everyone else. Yeah,
agreed. You got to pay attention to that really closely and see. Hopefully everyone by now with COVID has been paying attention to all of the injury reports leading right up to the start of games because there are some surprises. And so you just got to be paying attention, right up to leading to before the game starts.
Jim, and also with the Detroit game, as Jed was talking about, if for some reason Amon-Ra St. Brown is on your waiver, you pick him up and start him. Would you agree?
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, here's the thing: is if you have a dynasty league that allows you to keep more than 5 players, I would actually really consider keeping them. I think he'll be a good receiver.
Yep. Jed and Jim, the only reason I was a little distracted is because I wanted to get your thoughts on this. The 22 modern era finalists for the NFL Hall of Fame. If you were to pick on this, Jared Allen,
Man, Devin Hester better make it this year, man. That's all I got to say.
Willie Anderson, Rondé Barber, Tony Baselli, Leroy Butler, Devin Hester, Torrey Holt, Andre Johnson, Sam Mills, Richard Seymour, Zach Thomas, DeMarcus Ware, Reggie Wayne, Patrick Willis, Bryant Young. Look, if you had to pick 4 of them, Jed, I'll start with you. Which 4 would you pick?
Oh, gee. Well,
there's
I
some
don't know.
good players on here.
Yeah, obviously there are. I mean, I would just pick the ones that for me jump out. So to me, Devin Hester, again, because of the position, because of the dominance at that position, I think he should be a first ballot Hall of Famer. So that name jumps out to me. Torrey Holt jumps out to me as well. We already saw Marvin Harrison got in. Torrey Holt was every bit as good as Marvin Harrison on those old Rams teams, and maybe even better. And so I would say Torrey Holt jumps out. The other ones, I'm actually going to go, I would go on the defensive side. I think,
Leroy Butler, right?
Yeah, well, there's a lot. I mean,
Yeah.
look at
No,
these.
there's. I mean, think about it, right? Because if you put in a Torrey Holt, I could make the argument that a Reggie Wayne is better than a Torrey Holt, right?
Yeah.
Because of the number of yards and all that stuff too. And then on the defensive side, you've got DeMarcus Ware, you've got a Patrick Willis, you've got a Leroy Butler. I mean, those guys all made significant impact in their teams.
Yeah, I think you're right. And I know there's already a backlog of wide receivers for the Hall of Fame, but you're right. The fact that Torrey Holt and Reggie Wayne are both there could hurt them both. And so it might go to a defensive player because, and then we didn't even say Richard Seymour. Richard Seymour is ridiculous as well. I mean, very good player.
And then also Tony Baselli, right? He was the best offensive lineman for that team. He was the number 1 player that Jacksonville took to really launch their the franchise back in '95. And so even from that alone, you almost have to say you have to keep a Tony Baselli on the line as a member. This is crazy.
Now, Jim, you didn't answer the question. Actually, not 4. The max is 5 from modern day players. Which 5 would you pick?
I would pick, Baselli, Hester. I would pick a Patrick Willis. And I actually would go with the 2 wide receivers, Torrey Holt and Reggie Wayne. Because I feel like if you're going to pick Holt, you got to pick Wayne. But if you pick, I'll just go with both of them.
Jed, which 5?
Wow. I agree with Baselli. I think him and Hester, I think those to me are the 2 that are locks. Outside of that, you know what? I don't think the wide receivers are going to make it in. Now that I look at it, I think it's going to be all defensive. I would say I like Willis, I like Seymour, and gosh, even Willie Anderson. I think if we take Tony Baselli, how can you not take Willie Anderson? He's pretty ridiculous too, and even Rondé Barber. I don't know. I can't decide. This is too hard.
My argument is you have to have a Tony Baselli offensive lineman. Leroy Butler was one of the preeminent safeties of his time as well, too. Devin Hester, definitely. Out of all the receivers between Holt, Johnson, as well as Wayne, probably Reggie Wayne has had the most success in it. The other ones could wait until next year. You pick one of them, Reggie Wayne would probably be it. Patrick Willis, a lot of times I think he retired too early, didn't have enough years, comparable to Zach Thomas and DeMarcus Ware. Out of the 2, I would pick as Zach Thomas and wait for DeMarcus Ware and Patrick Willis for next year.
Tommy's a little biased for Patrick Willis because whenever we used to draft players with defensive players, that was the first one he went after. Now he just picks up Darius Leonard.
Every single year, there's certain players I love. It was Patrick Willis, then it was Luke Quickly, and now it is
Darius Leonard.
Yeah, Darius Leonard as well too. And my quarterback was always Tony Romo. I love Tony Romo as my starting quarterback.
See, I think we're also biased because these are guys we've seen play. Because look at Sam Mills. I bet you we are just forgetting. We just don't know how good Sam Mills was.
He played in 86.
Yeah, he almost spent, what is that? He spent almost like 8 years. I bet he has numbers comparable to the Zach Thomas and DeMarcus Ware. We just don't know.
Yeah.
Well, Sam Mills was part of that stud three-headed monster over in New Orleans back in the days with those. I completely forgot who those other linebackers are.
Yeah.
DeMarcus Ware was a pretty good player. I think he led the league in sacks
for the Cowboys. Yeah, he was very good. But I agree with you when you compare to Zach Thomas's longevity. I think Zach Thomas, I think Zach Thomas might have the edge there. I mean, he has really long, good long tenure. So
yeah. But Leroy Butler. I go back. Leroy Butler, Hester, and Pacelli is a sympathetic pick. So, by the way, Tom, did you guys know that ESPN fund, Parker's fund, is at $960,000 now?
Wow.
It's about to reach $1 million.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's the son, right? That's the Dickerson's son. Yeah.
That's his son.
That's so sad.
Yeah. By the way, Sam Mills was part of that famed linebacker, the Dome Patrol, that consisted of Ricky Jackson, Pat Swilling, Vaughn Johnson, and Sam Mills.
Yeah.
They weren't as good as the Bears linebackers, with Wilbur Marshall, Mike Singletary, all those guys, but they're pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, hey, as we wrap up, it's New Year's Eve, going to New Year's Day. Anything in regards to, we always like to talk about cryptocurrency. We like to talk about NBA basketball or any other news that's in there.
Hey, I saw the Chicago Bulls in a recent ranking across all divisions had the Bulls as the 7th best team in the NBA. I was like, yeah, go Bulls.
Yeah. Hey, the Bulls are really good. I want Brooklyn to continue to struggle because as much as they have a star-studded lineup, they have not been very consistent, and the Bulls collectively as a whole have been doing really well.
Hey, they're getting Kyrie Irving back. I think Brooklyn is about to take off. Just be careful. I think the interesting thing to watch is Klay Thompson when he comes back. How do they integrate the guy? Because it's not like they're losing, right? They are winning without him. So what do you do to integrate him and not screw up what you've already got?
Well, and he's been out for 2 years. And not like he's been out for a year. He's been out for 2 years.
Yeah. So I don't be surprised if Klay. Actually, I think Steve Kerr already came out and said if Thompson was going to start or not. But if it was me, I would bring him in off the bench for a little bit.
You know who I'm kind of glad. If you think about Golden State, right? They now have Jordan Poole. Their rookie James Wiseman hasn't come back yet. They got an Andrew Wiggins. So they've actually they've got a pretty decent team for Golden State.
Hey, remember the player that they had originally drafted, Jordan Bell? Remember his name?
Yeah.
He's the Bulls just picked him up on waivers from the G League.
The Bulls traded his. Didn't they both trade his rights or traded his rights?
For cash.
It was actually pretty good.
Yeah. Now, the only problem, Jed, I would disagree with Kyrie Irving. He's only playing road games. He still remains unvaccinated as well, too. And so suddenly you only have a player coming on road games. You're going to have to adjust to him, which, by the way, James Harden, as much as we complain that he's been, a little chunkier, he's been doing really well the last.
Oh, no, he's rounding into form. No. Here's the thing on Kyrie Irving. This guy is people don't give Kyrie Irving the love that they should. This guy is a top 5 player in the NBA. I don't care if he's only playing on the road games. He's going to have an impact. And here's my prediction. He will get vaccinated within the next month. In January, he will get vaccinated. He has not come out with this hard stance. He's basically got a philosophical issue with it, but I think he's going to get vaccinated. You'll see him continue to play, but regardless, that team is going to be dominant. I wouldn't want to face that team.
Hey, in terms of fantasy purposes, a lot of times, many of you guys noticed that Ricky Rubio is out with the ACL tear now. And so you have Sexton also out. Garland is out for COVID. Kevin Love, the last couple of games, 24 points. And before that, he's had 24 points, 29 points, 32 points, 18, 22, 23, double every single time.
Yeah.
Take a look at him, but at the same time, he probably won't be able to sustain it. But take a look at the trades. Rajon Rondo is slated to be traded from the Lakers over to the Cavaliers, and we'll see exactly what happens with the other trades.
Yeah. By the way, I just I know you've been trying to get Kemba Walker. I just dumped Kemba Walker in one of our leagues, so I can pick up this player called Aaron Wiggins. Aaron Wiggins is with Oklahoma. He's been scoring 22, 14, 24. I feel like he's one of those pickups that you want to look at this year.
Hey, I've been trying to figure out, is he the brother of Andrew Wiggins?
I don't know. Maybe.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. I mean, also like as I was watching some highlights on ESPN, and they kept talking about Wiggins, and I thought that it was Andrew Wiggins, but no, it's Aaron Wiggins.
But I also noticed that you dumped Luke Dork as well too.
Yeah, I dumped Luke Dork. Well, it's because I had Jordan Poole on my injured reserve, and I needed to move him up to the lineup, so that's why I had to take one of them out.
Got it.
Yeah.
Well, hey, Jim, any last thoughts before we wrap up for today?
Crypto is down, but it's your opportunity to buy in. So get in while you can.
I know 2021 is coming to an end, and everyone says 2022 is going to be hot next year.
Yep.
Well, we'll record one final time for next week. And remember, a lot of times we're going to talk through these topics: MVP, best waiver wire pickups, best rookie, most disappointing fantasy player, best late round pickup after the 6th round. So let's talk a little bit about those next week.
How about instead of most disappointing fantasy player, most disappointing fantasy team, which is going to be the Washington team, which destroyed a lot of fantasy teams.
Yes.
And I was telling Tommy my number one player that I wish I went all in on was Cooper Kupp. I knew he was going to be good, but I didn't know he was going to be that good. And he's the type of player you wish in the offseason you traded for.